All right, welcome back to the broadcast. Time for the People's Court. And as earlier mentioned, we'll be having three gentlemen who represent the NCCK as well as NCRC. And we equally have a legal mind on board. Sadly, we could not get a hold of a representative from SUPKEM, but all the same, the conversation must continue. Biggest question is that we look at the political connotations playing out in the country and the tensions that come along with various aspects of community. And we just want to understand as a people where we are at, but of importance, how we make sure that beyond all this, then we continue to save the nation. Welcome on board. The lines are open for you to speak to us, 22047 being the SMS short code as well. We'll be having the numbers to call that is running down on your screen. The lines will be open for you to as well be part and parcel of the conversation. As always, at Linda_Alela is my Twitter handle. TV47KE. Victor will tell you his. It is at Victor.
Muyakane.
At Muyakane. All right. So
no underscore.
No underscore.
Straight to the point.
All right. George's is at George_Maringa.
Absolutely.
Would equally be checking that to look at some of your comments as well as, just get to speak them out or to perhaps highlight them. So, Victor, whom do we have?
Yes, folks, to help us understand where we are, we have three gentlemen who we believe have fingers on the pulse of the nation. Mm-hmm. We have the honor of having Mr. Ochiel Dudley, who's an advocate partner at Bond Advocates. Karibu sana, sir. We also have Dr. Danvas Makori, who is a commissioner at the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. Karibu, sir.
Thank you.
And of course, as we like to say, last but not least, we have the Reverend Dr. Alphonse Kanga, who is the regional chair at the NCCK. Karibu sana, sir.
Asante sana.
Gentlemen, we find ourselves navigating strange waters. From where each of you sit, as brief as you can, talk to us about what you see. Let's start with you, sir.
Well, I see renewed confidence in our judiciary. Remember, a few months or weeks back, the Deputy President was not so happy with the judiciary. Now he is. I think out of all this, it's our judiciary that wins. And it's a beautiful thing when the judiciary wins.
All right.
Because in a society like ours, it's the court that has that power to pacify disputes and to settle them amicably. So it's a good thing for the courts.
Right. Thank you, sir. How about you?
I think one of the fundamental principles that are articulated in the Constitution is the role of the people, we as Kenyans. And for us, the most important thing is how are Kenyans and where are they? Mm-hmm. When it's all said and done, it's lives that matters. It's you and me. We're human beings. We're not abstract, ideas. We're actually human beings. So we agreed as a people to write a constitution and say this is what we want to be and to do. And you look at where is our country and where should we be vis-a-vis where we are right now. We have an extremely potential populace, but are we truly benefiting as a country the way we need to be? So for me, regardless of the political landscape, and we are a highly political nation, highly charged, we always have politics. The question is, what about the 50 plus million Kenyans? How are they and how are they doing? That's what
right.
Yes.
Right.
Rev.
They're a good reverend.
Yes.
Where you sit, what do you see?
Where I sit, from my perspective, as religious people, we are people of reconciliation. Before that, we were on the way of reconciliation. We were looking forward for reconciliation in this marriage. But now where we see where we are today, we can see imminent separation. Unless a miracle happens, there is separation coming. And when this separation happens, we need to ask ourselves, as this separation takes place, where will be the children and where will be the property and where will be the desire? Is it the desire of the children? And how do we come together and move on after that separation as we head towards divorce? Separation is not divorce. You separate for the time and then you wait for divorce. Because before we were looking towards reconciliation. But now we can see separation coming. But our prayer right now, as separation comes, there will be peace. That glue that brought people together will not break completely. The glue for the family will continue, whereas there is separation, life continues.
Rev, I presume we're talking about the president and his deputy, and that acknowledgement by the church that, they were trying to reconcile the two, and that it got to a point where it was something that could not have been achieved? Because you see, this takes the nation to a very precarious state, as you can evidently see.
Yes, from the beginning, our prayer as religious people, not only the president is deputy, there is a team here. There are two systems working.
Okay.
There's the legal system and there's the political system.
Right.
And so the legal system is here, the political system is here, but they are working on an issue of presidency. In that presidency, there was unity that was operating there. Our desire was that presidency will hold together and find ways and means to work together as we continue working within the country.
Okay.
But now the way things looks like, it looks like a separation is imminent. And unless a miracle happens, our responsibility right now is to pray. And since this is not the first one, it has happened in the counties.
Right.
It has happened in the other places. There's nothing new here.
Okay.
So ours is just to come together, and that glue hold us together, the glue that hold Kenyans together, and start moving to the next course of action.
And I'm glad that you bring in the aspect of the law as well as politics, that most of the people have argued that this is purely political. But we see it getting into the corridors of justice, hence the legal element to this. So how do you perceive perhaps the connection then that would be there between this whole saga that is playing out? And I'm glad that as well Rev speaks about what is happening at the national level as well as at the county levels. Of course, rising tensions as to what it is that we get to witness. And not just rising tensions, but pretty much in various communities. And that we have carried stories here that you have evidently seen, that it actually gets down to that level. Then it is now again this community versus that community. It is us, he's our man, he's their man, and all that conversation. So, I mean, this whole connection, how do you view it?
I think there's a political bit of it,
Right.
in the sense of the timing, because we are talking about the Adani deal. We're talking about the dysfunctional social health system. And there's something else they're doing. Handing over the airport as well to Adani, although that is in court and I can't speak much on it. I'm counsel on that case.
Yeah.
But for me, the timing was quite curious. Why now? And there are those who say that this is meant to distract people's attention from what's going on in the country, what's really ailing the country. I think that's a popular sentiment that came out during the public participation exercise too. People saying that we have more urgent things to deal with and that impeachment is not our most urgent issue now. If you want to impeach, then impeach both, because both have dissatisfied us. So for me, that's where the politics end. But then there's also this argument which I saw, and people are saying that the court has no role to play in this kind of thing. It's a political process. But I think the court has today discarded that argument really fast. And that's there was no other way about that, because if you look at Kenya's constitution, it says that the High Court has power to consider, to query, to evaluate anything said to be done under the constitution. Impeachment of a deputy president is something done under Articles 145 and 150 of the Constitution. So the court has power over it. And as to the intercommunal issues, I think that the commissioner is better suited to deal with it from NCIC.
And the commission man is here. Victor, let me ask this question as he speaks to that, and then of course you will come in. We get to witness communities, or the relations of communities, dwindling by the day, unfortunately. This, of course, pegged to that element of the political scenarios that play. What is even worse is that we say that there's the involvement of the political leaders. What then do we do to ensure that they're held to account? That, of course, we get to have our moral standing, and that amidst all this political terrain, we still, again, get to hold the societal values.
Well, we the people bequeath ourselves not only a constitution, but also a process within the constitution called democracy. Democracy fundamentally, unfortunately, calls for a choice which divides people. Just as it is.
All right.
Yet our role is to bring people together. Yet we said we need democracy. Democracy demands you choose between A and B or C. So if I choose A, my good friend, Dr. Reverend Afos Kaza chooses A and me I choose B, then we're divided with Wakili. Now here's a reality, and that's how we are today. There is a political reality which we have as a country. And I said earlier, we are a highly political society. Sometimes we expend too much resource both in time and money, just really focusing on that rather than key issues that really matter. In the last election, to answer your question, regardless of what formation you were backing, for the first time in our country, we were seeing a debate or an engagement based on issues rather than ethnic balkanization that is in the past. Usually in the past of our country, we had ethnic mobilization in terms of political mobilization. So you had, if I am from this region, I have votes from this region, and then you have votes from this region, and we come together. So for the first time, we saw an amalgamation of movements that transcended or even broke up those ethnic mobilization that which we were witnessed to, or we were a reality of our country. Now, we hope that was a step in the right direction, which it was. Right. Because it was issue-based. Even in the current, even in the present demonstration we saw, it was an issue-based. People were against something, not against people or a region, they're against something. Yeah. The fear now is that we are regressing back to the ethnic cocoons and ethnic relations that we were once part of, which we know was bad for our country, was bad for democracy, was bad for development. There was absolutely nothing good that came out of what we witnessed. That's why in a new constitution, we wanted to pass by. So I think for me, I would say this. We've not implemented even a third, and he's a lawyer, a third of our constitution that we have, as so to speak. So the caution to leaders is we as much as in politics there's expediency, yeah? Right. You gotta do what you gotta do. The question I'm gonna ask is at what cost? Is it the cost of the country? Is it the cost of the future of progeny? So when you fall back and put everything in perspective, then you realize, you have to be measured and tempered in what you do right now, because we have a nation and we used to have many nations in tribes. Now we're trying to build a nation. And because of that, we have to be more cautious and more prudent and more circumspect in what we're trying to do, so that we move our country forward rather than backward.
Okay. Yeah. Muyakane.
Right. I have a question for you.
Yes.
From a moral standpoint, what does this whole matter of the impeachment say about the leadership integrity in a country?
Of course, we have Chapter 6 that we all know that as a country, we have not really emphasized on that. And we missed the goal many years ago from the beginning, when the spirit of Chapter 6 has not been emphasized, even when we are doing the election of that political class. But for now, where we are in a country where this issue is, as the third voice, what we can say, yes, this process is going on, the political system is going on, and the legal system is going on. But since we know this group of people and where they stand, it is important that as Kenyans we stand aside and then look at them, maintain peace, and keep on getting united, so that we are not gotten into their system. How would you think as a Kenyan is that these people, they are so much interested in the impeachment right now, that the other day they were all in the Senate. They were all in Parliament. And the Speaker of the Senate suspended any international travel so that they can wait and do the right thing. I wish that kind of emphasis, that kind of vigor would be applied when they are dealing with other issues. But if you want to know that there is something amiss within these people, did you realize that today there was cancer prevention bill, there was public finance bill, there was fire and rescue bill, there was consolidation of bursary bill in Senate today that they were supposed to address on behalf of me and you. But you know what? They were no show today. But tomorrow they'll be there because of impeachment. Why? Because they have a political mileage to get in. So what does that tell you? It tells you, please Look at the political class as a team of their own, but don't let them get into your way. Let them mess up with you as we live our lifestyle and the way we do our things, so that we get united and move together despite that drama as it continue. The best thing is for Kenyans to be careful, to maintain peace. They have already started campaigning who is supposed to be their deputy right now. So what are we supposed to do as Kenyans? Stand strong, hold hands together, and stick with peace, knowing that when it comes to morality, there is something amiss.
The church is instrumental, all right?
I do have a follow-up on that. Clearly, then the question becomes, the church is extremely influential in our society. We still are very, very religious, be it Christianity or Muslim or any other religion that exists in the country. What role can faith-based organizations as a whole play or contribute to foster this culture of accountability and integrity in our leadership, as you've pointed out?
Role one is that we need to be impartial. We cannot be one side or the other. And then, of course, the other role is the role of prayer. And then the role of looking at it critically, be an all-round. The Christian community, the religious community, be an all-round, so that they look at issues from a multidimensional position where they can be able to analyze, compare, and contrast, and be able to deal with the issues spiritually, whether they are dealing spiritually, physically, mentally, all round, so that they can be able to guide. And whereas we are going to heaven, we need to know that we are still living here. We need to speak it out, to point it where it is. For example, as we are pointing right now, as we are saying, now we are looking at them critically, especially the senators. The same public participation that was there during this impeachment, we hope that same public participation, serious and quality public participation, will be given to all these other issues. For example, the Andani. We are talking about Andani. We are talking about education. We are talking about health issues. I wish the same vigor, the same energy will be put into those areas of our life. But as Kenyans, let's know, I think we need to come out at a time where we are going to say as Kenyans, remember, Kenyans, you are alone.
Right.
Leave politicians alone. We are alone. Let's stick together.
Like you said, it looks like a totally different tribe. Gentlemen, Mr. Ochiel, talk to me, and of course, Daktari, I want you to jump in as well. Let's talk about public trust, because this appears to be, a running theme in what we're talking about tonight. How do you think the public perceives this impeachment process, and what steps, if any, can be taken to restore this trust in their government? Because people do need to trust their government. Already we are seeing signs of people expressing that mistrust or distrust of the government. Let's start with you, and then you can jump in.
Well, before I answer that, just allow me to say something about the church. It feels as if the church has become what one of the absurdist writers said. Last week we heard about the absurdists, the like of Samuel Beckett,
Right.
when the deputy president likened parliament to a theater of the absurd. There's one of them who said that the church had become like a peeping Tom, looking at history through the wall, but not wanting to get involved. Because I'm not so sure we've heard the church's voice on this issue of SHA. Such a big mess, a 104 billion worth mess, costing people lives. People are dying because they're going to the hospital and they're not getting treated. The church has these mission hospitals, so they're aware of the situation. I'm not so sure I've heard the church speak about the people who are still missing, Kenyans, flesh and blood, real people, Kenyans missing until now, or were killed en masse. I'm not sure the church has sought justice for them. So it seems as if the church has also despaired.
And I'll play the devil's advocate, even
Yes.
when Rev is here,
Yeah.
to acknowledge the fact that on several occasions we have seen church leaders addressing some of these concerns that you speak. Do you suppose their hands are tied? Do you suppose it's beyond repair? Do you suppose perhaps they've gotten to a place where whatever it is that they recommend, they say, and all that might not hold much as they are the gatekeepers, much as, they are instrumental in addressing all this? And you'll correct me if I'm wrong, Rev, if at all you've spoken to these concerns that are being raised by Wakili here.
Well, I could speculate, but I think that the church was co-opted because that's also what happened to the opposition. 7 days after the elections in August 2022, the president invites to. Coming to the issue of public trust, just to conclude on the question you'd asked me initially, I think that Kenyans do not trust the government because the government has shown itself not to be trustworthy. There's nothing to trust. I mean, why do you mess up NHIF, which is working and could be improved? You increase the charges and then give us less. What's that for? Ketraco. We're always crying about, high energy bills, and then you load Adani into that on debt for 30 years. What's happening? I mean, JKIA is one of the most profitable institutions in Kenya, and then you want to give that away for 30 years for 130 billion Kenya shillings, which Kenya could raise in one day. And I think because of that, maybe that's why Kenyans were saying that, impeach both of these. We do not want them. We don't trust them. Give us the IEBC, right, so that we can also recall some of those MPs. I'd wonder why they are holding on to IEBC. We need IEBC.
The IEBC one is a whole new thing. Strange thing that we're, of course, we're going to get to it.
Dr. Mukori.
Rev has the right to respond. Let's allow him to respond.
I wanted to say that I'm glad that the attorney says that he thinks it's a perception. He tends to think the church is not. He thinks the church is not. It is true he thinks, but the reality is that the church is speaking. I don't know what method he wants the church to speak, but an organized church has different systems they speak. I can tell you, if you can look at our paperwork, how many letters we have written, what are the documents we have produced on those issues in different dimensions. Not only, there are this perception of individual, how they want the church to speak, the old school perception, before the IT, before the modern way, whereby we speak. We have walked to wherever those people and tell them, life, this is what we think. But the church, sometimes, the church does not need to be confrontational. The church needs to speak with you because all of you are our church members. Be it a politician or be it a lawyer, they are all our people. They are all our clients. And we speak to them in general and tell them, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. But the rest, it remains on you to decide what you do with the information we have given you. But for you, if you're about speaking, what you need to do is just to come around me and ask me, what have you said about this? What have you said about this? Because we have talked. If it is education, we have papers on that from NCCK. If it's about SHA, we have talked about it. If it's Andani, we have talked about it. We are talking, and even tomorrow we are talking on the same issue.
Okay.
Why? Because we are the watchman of the community.
All right. I want Dr. Mukori to jump in a little bit. And as you, I believe the matter's been discussed a little bit, but I want to ask you specifically as the NCIC, could you talk to us about specific strategies that your commission and indeed other institutions that have the same burden can implement to mitigate unrest and maybe even promote dialogue among communities during this impeachment process?
Thank you. Our posture has always been to be preemptive and proactive rather than reactive. So towards that, and even before this process started, we had a framework, what we call the transgenerational dialogue, or conversations, birthed out of what happened in June and July in our country. We all remember what happened. And realize that the country is highly emotive and there's real issues that affect all Kenyans. And there was a generation that was in the lead, which is Gen Zs, in advocating for change, transparency, and we know what was happening at that time, around 2 years back. So we rolled out a policy document. Within that framework, it actually is a framework called Strategic Dialogue. And within that, guess what was the number one issue when we did a study and we did a survey and we engaged Kenyans? What you asked earlier, trust, public trust. You see, within the concept of what we call Kenya and our constitution, it is implemented by what we refer to largely or loosely as the social contract, whereby we as a people entrust you the contract that you will do X, Y, and Z given what you told us you will do. So we have an agreement, social contract, that you will implement, so on and so forth. And as reality has beckoned, as you've seen as we go in the country, that hasn't been the case. And that's why there was agitation, there was unrest, and we saw what happened. This number strategy we have actually is to restore that trust, to answer your question. We cannot move as a country, and this is very important. And I want everybody to hear me very clearly. Regardless of who you are and what we are and what you do in this country. Because I'm part of government, so I can say this. We cannot move forward responsibly and effectively as a country unless and until trust is restored to an extent. Because it has been breached fundamentally. It's because within the social contract, the foundation of social contract actually is trust. When that is breached, you've flawed the whole structure. No matter how opulent the edifice is, your edifice is compromised if your foundation is not sound. Yeah. So the number one is to restore trust, is to have, as you say, dialogue and conversations. So for us, what we're doing, rolling out conversations within the country, and especially in regions that we know can be potential flare-ups, that the community and the generations, especially even the youth people, that can be restored. We are urging our counterparts in government agencies that are in the forefront to engage. What we realized during the election that preceded now was that when there's an engagement, see, when you called me here, I came as a state officer. When we are engaging, we're communicating. People understand challenges. People are able to understand, okay, now we see where you're coming from. Yeah, we're able to converse. You can ask questions and I can answer you really and honestly. And that is able to restore that trust so that as a country now, regardless of the challenges they're facing, regardless of the headwinds or storms they're facing, we can trust the government or institutions for that matter. Is that the reality? Not really. So for government agencies, for my counterparts in government, we have to engage our citizens. We have to engage our bosses. I always say our bosses are the Kenyan people. If they don't trust us, we have no business being in government. You understand? So we have to constantly have that engagement like we are right now to explain, to articulate, to say this is the issue, this is the problem, what is your issue? And then we can continue building that and restoring that trust.
At the heart of engaging the masses, there is the media.
Yes.
And we come back and get to understand whether you feel that the media then helps in the process of engagement, but importantly, whether then we need to make adjustments as to the coverage, but we must take this break. We really must take this break. After this.
Okay, after the break. Okay.
Yes.
I like it. Our good Reverend has taken off his glasses.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Huu murio wangu ni dere wetu keza wanchuani manzeni
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side. We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with
Bond Advocates LLP, that is Wakili Ochel, is with us in studio, as well as the Commissioner NCSC, that is Dr. Danvas Makori, and we have Rev, who is the Regional Chair NCCK, Reverend Dr. Alphonse Kanga, as well in studio. And of course, we are going to spend the next about 29 or 28 minutes just trying to figure out what way forward for the country amidst all this political talk. And we took a break at that very point where we were asking Jaden, what is the role of the media in all this? Because then we have all these tensions, tribal tensions. We have scenarios where, there's some positivity to, all this. And the media must highlight.
Okay.
The media must come out to speak about this. Just how helpful is the media? Or is there a space where then they go wrong in terms of making sure that we get to address this and in the right way?
I'm glad you asked this question because you're part of the media project.
Yeah.
So we can have our honest discussion. Yesterday, we had a meeting as NCSC with the Editors Guild of the country. Called all the editors yesterday. We had a breakfast meeting yesterday. Addressing the very issue you just raised right now, because this is very relevant. Because where we're going as a country, if you do not do responsible reporting, what we call sensitive reporting, then you can be part of the catalyst to push our country to the precipice. Yes, you have a duty to report what is happening, what is true. It's how you report it that matters. Let me give you an example. Yesterday, I was asked a question. Editors Guild, this is an editor, Editors Guild, about what is happening in Tana River. As a microcosm, what is happening in the country in terms of ethnic tensions that are coming up, okay? Now, a very senior editor asked, insinuated, quoting him, we see, I'm going to quote him, ethnic cleansing in Tana River, end of quote. So I stood, because the podium, and they said, 10 people have died from different communities, 5, 6 from each. How do you qualify to use that term, you as an editor, to say there's ethnic cleansing in Tana River? So if you report that, you know what's happening? You'll inflame and pour gasoline to a tinnering box. You understand? So you can report exactly what happened. This ethnic community fought with this community, these are casualties, as fact. But when you sensationalize it and say there's ethnic cleansing in the river, there's a problem. Right now, as we face as a country, yes, there's ethnic tensions rising up across the country, given the political reality as it is. If you go to your bars, the clubs and coffee and communities and the ratios and everybody, people hanging up, these conversations are happening. It's an unfortunate, ugly, and I'm going to use that word, ugly reality, because we should not we are trying to get away from that ugly past. Now we are back into it because it's dangerous. It is very dangerous because we know what we saw in 2007 and 8. So you as media, what I will say is very clear. Yes, even the Constitution acknowledges your role as far as accountability, as far as democracy is concerned, and is absolutely critical. You have that role. But nevertheless, here's my caveat. During the run-up to elections, we held a lot of trainings with editors and everything called sensitive reporting, conflict reporting. That you can, especially if right now the tension is happening, you can say something, but you have to be circumspect and fall back so that you don't inflame. And in this, like you're doing this forum, giving different perspectives, because then we can temper down, we can bring everything in perspective. So we can tell Kenyans, listen, yes, we have challenges as a country. Yes, we know what there's a raw feeling which we cannot hide. Right now, I can tell you, because as you say, right, we have the pulse in the ground. It's why tunasema tunajua ground vile kuko, we say the ground. And things are not as good and rosy. Let's face it. So the question is then, how you, as much as you report it, do you have a responsibility to make sure you don't inflame and make things worse? Yeah. So how do you dial it back and say, okay, this is a reality, but then you're responsible by having this discussion that we're having. So continue having this, have responsible people who can come, and as much as articulate different positions. At the end of the day, we have only one Kenya. So now you've sensationalized something, umelipua, as we say, umechoma. Then what next?
Okay.
You understand?
Right.
So you broke news, and you're the first to break news, and how you're reporting, and then you get headlines. I know you have bills to pay. Yeah, and owners have to be able to pay. You run a business too. But beyond that, we have a country and a future to protect. So that is the balance that you need to have.
You're at the heart, yes, as you come in, Rev, and address that as well. I hope you address the fact that while we talk about a people that have lost faith in their government, we equally are talking about a people that has lost faith in, the interfaith entities, in the church. How then do we go about this so that by the time you're coming in to assist in restoring hope, in, in preserving the nation, then these people can as well listen to the church?
From my perspective, from where I come from, we normally say faith comes by hearing.
And hearing.
And hearing the right thing. But the danger in this country, there is 3 tribes. Okay. There is the academic tribe, and there's the political tribe, and then there is the ground. The academic tribe, the political tribe take advantage of the ground. And so what they know is not like the politician, they are transformed with a lot of truth, but that truth has not transformed them. So what they talk among them and what they tell the ground so that they can benefit from the ground is completely different. And the only thing that can assist is that those who know the truth, and they have been transformed by that truth, to come up and do enough public civic education so that they can educate the people what the reality is. Like now, all what's going around in the country is not the reality. Right now is politicking. Right now is doing politics so that they can gain a mile from the situation. How do we help this politician not to gain a mile from the politician, to say the truth on the ground and the truth alone, so that let's not allow them. What's happening right now? Do people have faith in them? Not really. Actually, what's happening right now, what people are saying is that the DP plus others not in the game. The DP is there plus others not in the game. And those others who are not in the game, they are trying to defend them to stay out. If it is cleansing need to begin today and continuous. But we that are not involved, we that are part of the community, what we need to do is to have the truth being communicated at the grassroots, so that we don't come up with this issue of Mtuetu because he wants to manipulate and dominate for the sake of, his own benefit. The campaign, it is for manipulate, dominate, so that one can benefit out of this situation. May God help us so that we don't allow these politicians right now. We keep peace, we hold hands together, we make sure this is nothing. Actually, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a big issue. There has been impeachment in the counties. There has been impeachment of the other people. There was impeachment in Mary. The other say, well, how come this one is special? It is not. It's just like any other impeachment. We just back off and move strong as we were. But don't let somebody tell you, this is Mtuetu, this is Mtuenu will not bring food on your table.
Okay.
Mtuenu, when they destroy the shops, they not bring that shop, they not pay your school fees. But if you keep your shop intact,
then you'll be there.
Well put.
Right. I saw you nodding, and in some cases rather vigorously. What are your views on this?
You see, I think there's a point where NCIC missed the moment. There's a time when the young people of this country were saying that in this movement, we are tribeless, we are partyless, we are leaderless. That's something that NCIC should have celebrated, because their work, what they've been trying to do since 2008, is to create a tribeless Kenya. And the young people came out with flags and the national anthem as a leading identity. For the first time since independence, we saw Kenyans being Kenyans. Kenyanness was a new identity. NCIC was quiet. And when Farah Maalim threatened that by saying, you know, I would slaughter 5,000 of these young people who are trying to create a tribeless nation, how dare they? You know, the political class cultivates ethnicity and uses it as currency for politics. That is why this impeachment has come now, to restore the default where we have people speaking about our people, so that people steal public money and then they run and hide in their ethnic whatevers. Look at Raila Odinga, complaining about debt when he's campaigning 2 years ago. Now he's the first to celebrate Adani and to say in such glowing terms how Adani is such a good thing for the country. I mean, we have two tribes in Kenya, the haves and the haves not. The have not. The political class belong to the haves. I mean, the medical cover is not affected. You know, they've written in that law that you have no access to any government service unless you register under SHA. The Constitution says that you cannot deny someone medical emergency treatment, and also that from the taxes that the government gets, you're entitled to help. But then under SHA, the MPs have written in that law that if you do not register in SHA, you have no access to any government service, but their cover is safe and financed by the taxpayer. So I think that NCIC missed that moment, failing to celebrate the tribeless.
Right. I think, Wakili, I honestly thought you were very current in the current affairs. We were on record and got criticism for that by celebrating that fact that the initial tagline was tribeless. And the partyless, that's politics, but us, we were on record on the issue. And the chairman was very clear and he got big flag. We had a press conference and he commended them and saying on the issue of being tribal, because that is what we envision the country to be. Not to say tribeless per se, but that should not be a foundation of identity. I don't see you as based on your ethnic identity, I see you as a Kenyan. And the young people came and told us, reminded us, that is what not only Constitution says, that's what the reality they showed us. They showed us the future in the present. And we're very clear, actually. So, Wakili, I think you should have, before you told that, you had realized we were on record. Yeah. Clearly articulated our support, especially on the issue that they came as tribeless because that's what should be.
Was it
unified
done?
On an issue.
Yes. Was that enough? Because if Wakili here can stand to say that, well, there's a gap, but perhaps NCIC could have handled it different. And you will agree with Wakili or with me that this is not the first time that NCIC has been faulted in.
Yes, true.
Yes. Do you suppose you are doing enough? Should be.
So here is the reality. They were agitating for something. You need to find out something, and we're clear on the foundation of the movement really being tribeless, partyless, so on and so forth. As the protest proceeded and continued and morphed into different things, as we saw, and the president reached out, and we were actually engaged. So your question was, did you enough? You see, sometimes you do a lot of things behind the scenes. We were extremely involved behind the scenes in what we call back channeling. When the president wanted to engage the youth, he said, so who do I engage? Remember, he was in Alela one time and said, okay, I want to talk to these people. I promised engagement. Then they came up with a different framework, which we knew it wasn't going to work, the multi-sector framework. We said, these are young people. We said, go to the experts and engage them. It wasn't as successful. So there was no back channeling, which majority were not aware because the chairman met him personally and said, okay. And he said, I want to reach out. Who? we need dialogue, because you're talking about dialogue. So who do I talk to? And we reached out. I personally was involved in that. The young people, the young voices that were in the lead, that you saw, the influencers, and they said absolutely no, we don't want to. We don't trust you. Are we talking about trust and so on and so forth? You can only do so much, because in the mediation, you reach out to both parties. So we reached out to this party, this was willing to, this was not willing to. So there are things you do not discuss publicly, especially that, because it was sensitive. There's a lot of security dynamics that are moving on at the same time. So you can't say, as a mediator, you don't say, this is what I'm doing. You just do it, hoping that these parties can come to. Yeah, and they not really. So there's an opportunity lost, not because we didn't do, but I think was one side of the conversation wasn't willing to come and engage.
Fair enough. Folks, we find ourselves in a very interesting position. I want to ask each of you to give me the following, and to the Kenyans. What are your predictions on whatever happens and how this ground that we're talking about is likely to respond to this? And with that response, how then? What recommendations do you have for how we can actually take our country forward over the remaining 2.5 years or so until the next election? I say this for two reasons. One, most people feel powerless. They feel as though the only chance, the only opportunity they have to have a say is at election time. And in between, they're disregarded and forgotten. That's one. But two, once again, like we said before, there's a growing sense of angst. There's a growing sense of dissatisfaction, disaffection, disillusionment, and disconnection, which, as many of you have observed, if not handled properly, might create problems. So folks, what is likely to happen and how is the ground likely to respond to this? What would you have to say about that? Let's start with you, our dear Reverend.
First of all, let me begin by saying that after this, what we need to understand is that there is something the inner family of politicians know that the rest of us, we don't know. And so we are being taken for granted. And if we know that as Kenyans, after what happens, it will not be a big game. We leave them with their game and force them to go back to Adani, force them to go back to the health issue, force them to go back to education, force them to go back to what brings bread on the table. And we just need to be a little bit smarter than them, that let's not allow anybody come and tell us who you knew to now who you knew. Let the political class play their game, because even now for sure, if you investigate carefully as an individual, you realize there is something the politicians know that we don't know. Because like we, religious leaders, we were looking at a point of reconciliation. We have realized, this is not our game. And that's why we are neither for this or for that. We look and see, but make sure peace must prevail. After this, what will happen? I can tell you, Kenyans are a little bit smarter. After this, nothing is going to happen. After they'll go down, people will go to their business, and whoever will come up will tell them, okay, pick up. But Kenyans will still insist on education issue to make sure that people have gone to school, the children at home have gone back to school. The issue of the SHA and HIF is dealt with. Nobody's dying in the hospital as we go through this, so we are not confused. Everybody make sure that the issue of the other issues that's ruining us in the country is well taken care of.
I like what you say, Rev, and I like that element of hope, even as the other gentlemen come in. But we are alive to the fact that we have seen nations go down, and God forbid we do not take that route based on the political tensions. Can we confidently say that this is going to ebb away and then we get to the real issues?
We can confidently say that because right now, where we are, yes, we can hear some voices, but these voices, as I say, it is manipulation for domination to assist the situation for now.
Okay.
What's happening right now, the politicians are using it cunningly so that it can help them gain a mile. Okay. But when they realize that they are defeated, then they'll go back to normal. But we, the people of Kenya, we should rise up and say, really, we, the people, this is the country we want, not them.
Beautiful.
All right.
Mm-hmm. To answer you, first of all, I want to put a disclaimer. I am not a prophet. I don't have a crystal ball. So I don't want somebody to quote me later and say, you are a false prophet. You say this. And this happened. I participated a while back, I had a privilege to participate in something called the Futures Workshop, where you do scenarios in the futures. What can happen? What should happen? And it's a very scientific, objective way of looking at the future. It's the hardest thing because our point of reference is now in the past, so it's really hard to predict. To answer your question honestly and briefly, I would say this. It is, first of all, impossible to predict the now because there's so many variables moving at the same time. But in the near future and in the far future, it's not even as difficult because certain things do not change. This is going to happen. Come the next election cycle, it will not be business as usual. Every assumptions that we have as Kenyans in how we view the world and lenses will be radically changed. And before we get there, I feel, and I'm using this word very careful, there will be a spanner in the works thrown, and thrown as well as a tailspin. So it will not be as usual because everybody's in assumption, or this is automatic. There's nothing automatic. So what I can predict, given what is happening right now, in 2027, to Kenyans, it will not be business as usual. Something radically different will happen. And we need to remove our lens in how we understand the world, in the worldview, to really appreciate the future as it will happen. And because we do that, then we'll lose the moment. So in general speaking, it will not be as automatic. There's nothing automatic. There's nothing guaranteed. And it will be radically different than we think. So who is wise? A wise man will plan for that an eventuality. So do we have a wise man? In Greek, the Greek word for wise is Sophia. It is a man who would climb up a mountain and see as far and then do as it is. Even, he's a theologian, he's one who also looks to the sky and then predict because of the Bethlehem is what we need to do.
Right.
So for me, if you look up the sky, the future that is beholding is very different than we think it's going to be.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
What about you, Mr. Chel?
Well, I think first of all, as a lawyer, it's very interesting legal times because we have about 29 petitions filed in court by today evening. The proceedings were going on until around 9 p.m. And for me, if the deputy president can have a dispute, a disaffection, or a grievance and take it to the court, then it should give the ordinary Kenyans the confidence that Kenya's judiciary has come of age and is able to resolve disputes. And when you have trust in the court system, remember in 2007 happens because there was no confidence in the courts, right? That's why 2007 happens. Now we've gone full circle. We have a new judiciary, properly staffed. People have confidence in it, including the deputy president, whose mind changes in a few months. Previously was like, hey, I don't trust the courts, they messed me up. But now he says, I have full confidence in the courts. I think that's a good thing for Kenyans because it gives a safety valve for resolution of disputes. Outside court, I think that Kenya has reborn itself. They've shed off that tribal tag. They've seen that tribe is something that the political class uses as currency. And then they discard it. You suffer, you're suffering as Mijikenda, as any community you form. Then when it's time for elections, you're reminded, oh, this is our people. Or when one of them is nabbed, then suddenly it's our people. But when they steal for them and for their children and friends. And their friends from abroad, people like Adani. Now, I think that moving forward, they should give Kenyans IEBC so that Kenyans also have a chance to express themselves on how they feel about their members of parliament, because that's also part of their democratic right. The right to recall your representative is a right that Kenyans have. And the failure to have IEBC in place is depriving them of that right. It is also messing up with the constitutional timelines for boundary review before 2027. So I think that once this impeachment business is over, Parliament should reconvene and give Kenyans IEBC. We need to have the IEBC in place. And you know what's holding it up? A dispute within Azimio. Again, the political class. Why are they doing that?
All right, interesting. Before we close, Wakili, perhaps maybe in 30 seconds, I know we are taking this and we are using the legal as well as the constitutional procedure to all this that we appreciate. Do you suppose that the president should pronounce himself on this matter? He's been so silent. Well, he addresses a couple of things here and there, or perhaps silence is as good.
Well, Linda, I think you asked the deputy president that question, and he answered saying that his impeachment motion could not have been tabled without the president's blessings.
Yeah.
He's speaking in silence, maybe. I do not know.
Interesting. Gentlemen, we must come to a close, and we appreciate your contribution to this broadcast, as well as we continue to articulate these concerns for the people of Kenya to, listen and, get to levels where we can, discern and get to know where do we go? What do we do? As a people, like Rev would rightfully say, it's important that we stay woke. And
That's right.
That this is being fueled by the politicians, but of course, we rise above that. We appreciate your contribution, Reverend Dr. Alphonse Kanga.
I do believe there's a reference in the good book about a tribe or a community of people known as the sons of Issachar, who know how to read the times
and what needs to be done.
And what needs to be done.
Yes.
All right.
I believe that's our rallying call, good people of Kenya, to be like the sons of Issachar. Read the times and understand, seek the wisdom or seek the understanding of what needs to be done.
Give the politician a blackout.
I don't know whether that is possible, but yes, all in all.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you, Daktari. And thank you, Sochiel. And thank you for sharing your insights tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to us. My name is Victor Muyakane. I wish you a good night full of God's blessings. And please, be responsible. Be responsible.
And of course, appreciating the Rev once more. And in a better way, Dr. Alphonse Kanga, who's the regional chairperson of the National Council of Churches of Kenya. Thank you so much, as well as Dr. Danvas Makori, who is a commissioner with the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. Asante sana. And last but not least, advocate partner of